Do you want to swipe right on a new, interesting move card? Find out what's going on as I hereby invite everyone to join me on my adventures through Marvelous Snap. Hey everybody, it's Annabelle. So we got the last card that came out with the Secret Series 4 drop. We are going backwards in time to the BC Avengers, and this time we are talking about a FEI. I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce it, and how I'm going to pronounce it for the rest of this video. FEI is the first Iron Fist in the timeline of the Marvel Universe. She was born and raised in the heavenly city of Shou Lao, and at the age of 15 she was caught teaching Kung Fu to the cavemen beyond the borders of the city. To punish her, the students that she had taught were sent to be fed to Shou Lao. Anyway, she jumped into the pit of the dragon so she could at least punch the dragon one time before she died to it. However, she managed to slay the dragon and win the power of the Iron Fist. But for killing their sacred dragon, she was also exiled from her home. FEI then traveled the outside world. She defended the weak humans from the man-apes, but vowed never to teach them again. This got her the attention of Mephisto, who visited her in the form of a snake. And when she refused his partnership, he then helped the Alpha Gorilla instead by giving him a power jump, and the next time the two fought, she was badly injured, to the point where she had to wander back home, where she was shockingly welcomed back with open arms. You see that Shou Lao had resurrected now, and her actions had revealed his true nature to their people. FEI refused their newfound kindness and continued traveling the world. She found herself unable to leave the early humans that she encountered in exile to defend with, so she battled many monsters and eventually got the attention of Firehair. She was approached and asked to join the team of the champions to defend the new mortal to Earth. She would stay with this team for many battles, trying her best to keep the team going for as long as she could, and she even kept fighting the good fight without her fellow Avengers once they had disbanded. FEI remains somewhat aimless despite her incredible training and mental and spiritual integrity. She tends to doubt her abilities, her actions, and her role as a hero. She's over-analytic and quite skeptical about what she does. She has feelings of inadequacy that come from her upbringing, and is living a life without being crushed by who she is, where she came from, and what her city could do for so many if they let her. However, despite this, she seldom descends into self-pity and tries to be a generally likable, open-minded person. FEI is a skilled acrobat, gymnast, and a master of all martial arts. Having dipped her hands into the heart of the dragon, she is capable of channeling her chi to give her strength, speed, stamina, durability, agility, reflexes, and senses on a superhuman level. She can also activate this chi into a single point of her body, usually her fist. And with focus, she's able to move her chi into her injuries, allowing her to heal faster than usual. She also has an intelligence that is relatively large than most of the other species around at her time. FEI was born millions of years ago and was the first person to ever dip their hands into the heart of the dragon to save others, giving her the power to activate her senses to a superhuman level, and then getting, unfortunately, moved from her home. This is represented in Marvel Snap as she can activate her powers to save others by getting them moved out of her home. So Marvel Snap, what this card does is a lower cost, a 7 power, with the description of activate once you activate this card, which means it has to be out on the field for at least one turn. And face up. She will move all the cards in her location and only her location on her side and only her side, one spot to the right if possible. So if she's in lane 1, she'll move stuff to lane 2. If she's in lane 2, she'll move stuff to lane 3. If she's in lane 3, unfortunately, she can't move anything. I've looked through her, I've gone through her, I've studied what she can and can't do, and in all honesty, she basically falls into about a 2-star rating. And that's kind of sad because if you look at her to start out with, you basically sit there and go, well, she's just a Heimdall, but backwards. She's a cheaper Heimdall, she only does her lane, but she does it to the right instead of to the left. And you're like, that's gotta be awesome. The problem with that is you sit there and go, for what? First of all, the fact that it's an activate card that's above 3 makes her incredibly hard to see any kind of play, because you have to get her basically on 4 or 5 to have any kind of hope. If she's not in your hand by 4 or 5, she's basically a dead card, because you can't really play this on the 6. And every time, and even stuff like Black Widow has a hard time even at 3. So the cards that you kind of want to see with her would be small cards like Human Torch and Scream. And Dagger. The problem is Scream kind of does the opposite for her. I mean, it's not the worst thing for Scream to be on the board against her, because she does stuff as a big hunk, and Scream only gets 1 power-up for that instead of multiple power-ups. But Scream still shuts her down a little bit. The other problem is even with Hydra Stomper out there, which is kind of the card you want to do, if you're kind of wanting to do the Chacho slide with this, on turn 6, you activate, move everything to the right, and then with Heimdall, move everything back to the left. Kind of do that little slide to the right, slide to the left. Even if your entire location is completely full with cards, that's only going to give Heimdall, the Hydra Stomper, +3 for moving over that one time and +3 for moving it back. That's +6. That makes him a 3/8. That's not bad. It's just not great either. The one thing that is kind of also you got to watch out for is any kind of thing that mess up her lane really mess her up. Rocks, world, ninjas. Pretty much anything that is in her lane that you don't have the move tag on is going to be a detriment to her. You kind of look at her, she's almost a worse Madam Web. Almost as good as a Madam Web. A little worse, a little better, depending on how you do it. You play Madam Web on 2, and you play a card before Madam Web into her location. Then you're going to, on turn 3, be able to move something, on turn 4, be able to move something, and on turn 5, be able to move something, and even on turn 6, be able to move something. So that allows you to move 4 cards, where the most that the fan will let you move is 3, and it only moves it into 1 location, and that's part of her other problem. If your last location, if you're in 2 and your 3 sucks, then you really don't want to move it into that location. I mean, it'll help you when it's a stormed out location or a Sanctum Sanctorum, but I'm not quite sure if this card is good enough just to be a standard card in a running deck. If you were to look at this card as a standard card in a running deck, it falls into the same power as High Evolutionary. Do you want to play a High Evolutionary in your deck? People aren't playing the High Evolutionary in their deck anymore, and this has probably as much power, if not even a little bit less power than a good High Evolutionary deck. So you really got to get 2 moves out of there, 3 moves out of there. The one good thing about it is because of how it is an activate card, it's really hard to knock out that effect, so you really can't stop the effect from happening. So there is part of me that kind of wants to see if it can be just used as a regular tech card to move something 1 spot over when you need to. But the problem is, even with that, it's got to be in her lane. The other last problem that you really have with this card is simply the fact that if you set up your turn, if you set up on turn 4, playing down this card, and then you put down 3 other cards in her location, or you have 3 other cards in her location, you are basically broadcasting in big neon lights, hey, I'm moving these 3 cards one spot over to the right, because that's why I have this card. So if your opponent knows that and knows that's what you're going to do, they can really play around that third slot, or that thought that where everything's going to move to. Now you can play some sort of weird mind game with people if you really want to, and just put it down and like, oh yeah, I was never going to move these. In fact, I'm going to play Heimdall on 6 and move them the other way, and then, haha, I've got you. But that's almost like, why? If somehow you could get it so that the Heimdall could trigger first and then the fan could trigger second, it might be an interesting thing where the Heimdall stuff over and then fan kicks it back. But the activate will always happen before the Heimdall does. So you can't really get it to work in that kind of manner. So it's really got this problem where you sit there and go, okay, what's your step 3? You want to put move cards in your deck, that makes sense. That's why you're putting stuff in there like Dagger, and that's why you're putting stuff in there like Human Torch. And you obviously want to play this card because that's why you have it in your deck. But is moving Human Torch and Dagger once enough? And then when you look at the higher move cards, there's really nothing good in the 5 cards for move. You look at the 5 cards with move on it, you basically have Spider-Man 2099, and that's really about it that would get the effect off of moving. So you kind of got this weird little package where it's like, the cards that make the most sense to be moved are the 1s, 2s, and 3s. There's nothing even good on 4, even if you look at 4. Yeah, let's move to 4. We don't have a single card in 4 that really gets power off of moving by itself, or getting moved by itself, or getting moved at all. It really has this weird spot where your cards that you want are in the 1s, 2s, and 3 slot. And putting down her on 4 is such a big commitment to a move deck that if you're not putting other move cards in her, why play her? And once you have her down, if they see that you're playing her down and you see that you've got a decent amount of move cards in her location, they can either figure out some way of getting more power into the location where she's going to send stuff, or somehow destroying the cards that are in her location before she takes over, or just, lack of a better anything, if they have no answer, just walking away, conceding, retreating, and then you don't get better cubes. And while it's good to get 2 cubes instead of no cubes, you're not going to see those big 8 cube wins because the battle plan that you have set down is so obvious, it's hard for anybody not to realize what's going on. Anyways, I want to thank you all so much for watching, and as always, remember, play for fun.